bringing Gator Nation a different Gator Great every episode.
This is Jabbar Gaffney. You're listening to the All for the Gators podcast.
Hey, I'm Earl Everett. You're not a Gator, you're Gator bait.
This is Bo Carroll.
Hey, I'm Rita Anthony.
This is Kewan Ratliff, and you are listening to All for the Gators podcast.
This is Cedric Faison, a.k.a. C4.
This is Brandon James.
This is Jack Jackson. Go Gators.
Hi, this is your boy Jeremy Mincy, a.k.a. Mr. Mintz, and we were the All for the Gators podcast.
This is Ben Trooper. You listening to the All for the Gators podcast.
Hey, guys, this is Jarvis Moss. Go Gators.
You rocking with Lito Shepherd, and we're All for the Gators podcast, man. Top notch.
This is Chris Doring, and you're listening to the All for the Gators podcast.
And now, your Gator alumni hosts, John, Andy, and Sid.
Okay, everybody, friends of the show, I have a huge announcement.
Here we go.
This is my final episode, because the only reason I agreed to hang out with these dudes to do this podcast was to have a chance to talk with our guest today. And now that he is on the show, I can officially retire. There is nothing else I need to do. Old school friends of the show might recall in the very first episode, John asked us all, who is it that we want most on the show?
You go, Sid.
Before John even finished asking the question, the words came out of my mouth. The greatest Gator of all time, the only Gator to win a Heisman Trophy and lead us to a national championship as a coach. My goodness, they play the damn game on this man's field. That is called Steve Spurrier Field, folks. You know who's on the show this week, everybody? Oh my God, I am so excited. So please check this out. This is my final episode. Very excited.
He has hijacked the show, ladies and gentlemen.
He has, man. Holy cow.
That's more than Sid's talked in 2 years.
Oh, man.
He go out on top.
He came in hot today.
Yeah, he did. Holy cow.
I'm very excited about this episode, friends.
Well, you should be. You should be.
Quite possibly the biggest one we'll ever do.
Yep.
We always have wonderful guests, and I can't wait for future friends of the show, but I feel bad who forever's next, because that is a tough act to follow. Friend of the show, Ron Zook, could attest to that. That's a different story, though.
When we first kicked off this show, it might have been our very first episode, in the intro, we went around the horn and said our wish list. And who was number one for each of us in our wish list? I had Rex Grossman.
That's a good one.
Andy, do you remember who you picked?
Thought it was Tebow.
Was it Tebow or Danny?
Thought it was Tebow, but my memory's not good.
Either or, Tebow, Danny. The point is...
Without question, I remember who my choice was.
Sid's choice was absolutely, without a doubt, the head ball coach.
Yes.
And he's coming on tonight, Sid. So it was a pleasure having you on the show, Sid.
Well, yes, I'm going out in style.
Yes, Sid, we're going to miss you.
For those of you out there who don't know, I actually used to work with Coach Spurrier. He was a colleague of mine. Colleague, I'll call it. I was the dumbass who pointed at the camera for his TV show.
Here we go.
So I'm very excited to be reunited with my former showmate there. So this is
show the picture of yourself and Coach.
Are you gonna post this online? This is picture with the voice of the Gators, Mick Hubert, and between me and the coach. Oh my! I was very excited on my final show. I'm like, Coach, I'm graduating. Can I get a picture? And he said, Sure, see it. And I was so excited. Coach knew my name. And now we can add that to the impressions of Spurrier, because I got that on there too. But yes, very excited to be reunited with my old friend, the old ball coach. Thank you for putting this together, super producer.
All right, I don't want to waste any more time.
Me neither. Let's do this.
Gentlemen, today's Gator Great needs no introduction, but it's what we do, so here goes. This man's the one true GOAT of Gator Greats. It all began at Science Hill High in Johnson City, Tennessee, where he was a three-sport standout. All-state in baseball, all-state in basketball, and all-American in football. Offers were pouring in, but Coach Graves signed the young quarterback to lead the Florida Gators. And as a Gator, he would go on to set every UF passing record, many SEC records, earning first-team All-American twice, consensus All-American his senior year, and of course, the Heisman Trophy, first in school history in 1966. He went on to play a decade in the NFL, and then he became a coach and changed the landscape of college football forever. Pioneer, innovator, absolute legend. He won Coach of the Year at 3 different universities, 9 times overall. This man has more ACC championships than the Miami Hurricanes. He's a 6-time officially SEC champ. He's the winningest coach in the history of UF and South Carolina, and one of the winningest coaches to roam the sideline of college football, period. Gator Nation, I give you the father of the fun and gun, member of the National High School and College Football Hall of Fames, with number 11 on his chest in the orange and blue, and the man that transcended college football and what it truly means to be a Florida Gator. Heck, he named the Swamp, forever donning that iconic visor, 1996 national champion, UF and UF Athletics Hall of Famer, one of only 6 Gators in the Ring of Honor, the head ball coach, Mr. Steven or Spurrier. Coach Spurrier.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Welcome, Coach. Welcome.
Well, that was a nice introduction. I have to admit, that was a good one.
All right.
Thank you, Coach. And it's a true honor, absolutely, to speak to you today. Thank you so much for taking the time for us.
No problem. Glad to be with you.
Before we get started, I saw Mike P. was at your restaurant. And for the people that don't know, you have a ton of memorabilia of yours and others in the museum there. And Mike P. recently got inducted into the Florida Georgia Hall of Fame. He put his Hall of Fame bust in there. So I was wondering, besides the Heisman trophies, what are some of your favorite pieces in that museum in Spurrier's Gridiron Grill?
I think my favorites are probably the championship mementos. I've got a bunch of game balls from, I think, all 7 of the SEC championships we won, and then a game ball from the national championship. So those are, I think, the team championships are the most special to me. And then we got some stuff in there from high school also. I was fortunate enough that our high school won back-to-back state baseball championships. And I'm really proud of that because that was some accomplishments that our team did back in high school. So that and basketball. Yeah, we won a whole bunch of games, won the conference, but we did not win a state championship in high school basketball. But anyway, I was really fortunate and blessed to have a nice senior year and got recruited by a lot of schools. And Coach Graves came up, and I visited Florida when it was about 72 degrees, and back in Johnson City it was about 32 that weekend. So that might have had a little to do with it. But Coach Graves was a big influence in me coming to Florida. And at that time, that was the best decision of my life.
Well, let's take it back to Johnson City. J. Graham Spurrier, your father, was a Presbyterian minister, and he coached your Little League team. He didn't agree with the slogan, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. And he would actually tell you and the team, if they're keeping score, we're playing to win. So how did that mindset start kind of shaping the tenacity of a young Steve Spurrier, both as a competitor playing and then later on in the coaching world?
Yeah, as a kid growing up, my dad was a Presbyterian minister, and he loved sports. He was sort of a tennis player in his day, but he probably loved baseball better than any of the sports. And he coached our Little League team, Babe Ruth League teams, and so forth. And he just he always said, if you're keeping score, you got to try your best to win the game. And so we just always tried to do that. And anytime we're keeping score, if you're out there just practicing against your teammates, then you don't have to worry about, who makes a good play or bad play. But anytime you're keeping score, that's when you've got to try to win the game. I used to be accused when I was a pro coach, you have all these exhibition games, preseason games and all that.
Sure.
And some people accused me of trying to win those games. And they were right. We played everybody. Everybody played, but we still wanted to win. And so I was, my last year as a head coach, I coached the Orlando Apollos in that AAF, Alliance of American Football. And we only had one preseason game out in San Antonio. And we're staying at a hotel. And anyway, we got ahead, and Mike Martz sort of made a little comeback. He started running some ball plays that we started using ourselves. But anyway, we put our first team back in there to just make a first down and get the game over with. And I told somebody, I said, we couldn't blow this game. So we get back to the hotel, and all the sort of Spanish, Mexican ladies that are maids and cooks and everything at the hotel, they were waiting there back for us. And that was their Super Bowl. we beat a team in a preseason game in the Alliance of American Football, and it made those ladies and people that work back at the hotel so happy. So I never will forget that's what winning does. It makes somebody happy. You don't know who it is.
So Let's talk a little bit about recruiting. You said what an important role Coach Graves had on you ultimately coming to University of Florida. We've had a lot of your former players on the show, and we've heard a lot of great stories about you recruiting them. Jack Jackson told us a great story about you shutting off the TV his dad was watching, and Riddell was one of my favorites. He was mad at his mom because she didn't let him use the car, and you didn't have time for his attitude, and said, "Hey, Riddell, if you don't want me here, I'll leave." And he said that was the moment he knew he had to play for you. I'm sure you remember those and hundreds like that, but do you have a particular favorite story you remember of a fun situation when you were on the recruiting trail?
Yeah, that one with Riddell was interesting. His mom, she got mad at him for something. He was late coming home or did something or another. Said, "You're not going to be able to use the car for a week," something like that. So Riddell was over there pouting. He wasn't listening to anything I had to say. So I told him, I said, "If you're not going to listen, I'll come back some other time or whatever." He said, "No, I'll be all right." So, but we went and got Riddell Anthony and Fred Taylor that same weekend. So that was probably the most productive recruiting trip I ever had.
Wow!
But no, there wasn't a lot of things back in those days. I mean, you had to recruit. You couldn't pay them like we do today. So we just tried to sell our program, sell graduating from Florida. And if they're good enough to go pro, then certainly we can provide that opportunity for them also.
Was there ever a player you recruited that you just had to get? Like, no matter what it took, you had to have him on your team?
I would say that Danny Warfel was probably the closest to that.
Okay.
And we were recruiting like 3 quarterbacks that last year, and we back in 91, end of 91. So Danny was a freshman in 92. He's actually redshirted. So we had Eric Kresser, and Eric Kresser committed early. We needed one more. And so anyway, Danny, on film, he looked really good, but I happened to watch him in the state championship game. And during warm-ups, he sort of put the ball behind his head, and looked like sort of a shot put when he was warming up. And I said, "Dang, this guy, I don't know if he can throw like that." And then all of a sudden the game started. And they were playing Cardinal Newman out of Fort Lauderdale, who was favored by about 3 touchdowns. And Danny and his little guys from Fort Walton Beach came in there and beat them like, 38-29 or something like that. And when the game started, though, Danny's ball was just, perfect. He put it right on the money, this, that, and the other. And then he ran an option play, and he ran about 85 yards for a touchdown. And the coach at Cardinal Newman down there in Fort Lauderdale said, I couldn't believe this guy. We got 2 defensive backs that run 4-5, and they couldn't catch him. Danny Warfel outran the whole team. And I said, I watched the same thing. And I said, there's something about this kid. We got to get him. There's something about him. And all he did was come to Florida, win 4 SECs, and won national championship during his time there. So, sometimes you don't go by their size and how fast the ball comes out and all this, that, and the other. But some players have that little intangible that it goes to all the other players on the team. And Danny Warfel, he was just a winner. That's all I could say. Talent-wise, he didn't look like the best, and then all of a sudden the game would start, and you knew he was the guy.
When you get to Gainesville in 63 as a player, there was a bunch of other quarterbacks there already, freshman quarterbacks, and actually back then freshmen couldn't play on varsity their first year. So you played freshman teams from other schools. What did you learn from those freshman games that helped you later on?
Yeah, when I got down here, another quarterback actually got here a little before I did. He came to summer school, I think. A guy named Alan Kelly. He only lasted a year or 2 down here and went back. I think he was from actually Tennessee also. But anyway, he came down here. He grabbed number 11 on the freshman team. And I got stuck with 16 for the team pitcher. And we made a deal, though. I said, hey, whoever wins the job gets their choice of the number, okay? And he said, sure, that's fine. So anyway, I got to wear number 11 when the game started. But when when we took the freshman picture, I was number 16. So that was sort of interesting. But anyway, now we had a whole bunch of good players, and Coach Graves and his staff were a lot of fun to play for. We had good years. We lost to Georgia in the biggest game that could have won the SEC for us my senior year. But we won the Orange Bowl, finished in the top 10, and I was certainly blessed to have come to Florida and played for Coach Graves, his coaching staff, and all my teammates back in those days.
Well, let's talk about before you get to the senior year. Back in '64, you earned the starting job, but you suffer a knee injury in the spring. The returning quarterback, Tommy Shannon, starts the season as the starter, but Coach Graves starts rotating you in, and you eventually earn the starter job after some big game heroics week after week. So Gator Nation has to know, is this where it all started with juggling in and rotating the quarterbacks in and out, Jesse and Doug and all that stuff? Is that where it started?
No, not at all. That all started when both of them were about the same, talent-wise, ability, this, that, and the other. There wasn't a lot of difference, and they both would play well when they were in there. And sometimes if one of them got off to a bad start, the other would go in. And then we got late in 97, I guess, and Doug Johnson and Noah Brandeis. Mm-hmm. They were our two quarterbacks, and they've been going back and forth. And Noah had actually was a walk-on that earned a scholarship, but he's one of those guys, when the game was going on, he was pretty daggum good, and he could throw it better in the game than he could in practice. He's just one of those kind of guys. And so we rotated them. In the only game that Florida beat the number one team in the nation, FSU came in here number one in 97. So the winning quarterbacks were both of them because they rotated each play, I think, all the way through the ball game. And we fortunate enough to win that one.
That was a great game.
Did that help you save timeouts where you could talk to them on the sideline?
Well, Jesse Palmer told me one time, he said, I sort of like that because you could tell me, well, if it's not open there, go over there. If they're in this, try to check to this. So I could give them a quick little coaching point before every play. And, you could walk halfway out on the field, walk back. So there is something to that. Nowadays, they got the microphone. They finally, I think, allowed that this year. So coaches don't have to do all the signals and so forth. We had to do it back in the 90s. But, it is helpful to be able to sort of coach them up a little bit as you give them the play.
All right, so staying back in '64, though, getting that SEC Sophomore of the Year wasn't the only exciting thing that happens. This is when you meet Mrs. Coach, the lovely Jerry Starr. So we want to know, did she chase down the quarterback, or were you the first to ask her out, or how did this romance start back then, Coach?
I think I asked her out. But yeah, certainly we got married my senior year, right before my senior year. And the first game, I was the back of the week in the nation. So I said, it must have been a good move getting married before the season. And we've been married about 58 years now. So all the good things that have happened to me, most of it's her ideas and she being with me all through this time. She deserves most all the credit for all the good things that have happened.
I noticed in your book, Head Ball Coach, My Life in Football, it sort of ends on that. The twist is that Jerry's your head ball coach. And I thought that was a pretty cool way to do the book.
Yeah, without question, I'm not a real aggressive type guy and so forth. And let's see. I mean, Coach Dickey gave me a chance to coach quarterbacks here way back in '78. And I guess we didn't win enough games. He got fired, and Charlie Pell did not keep me, which was understandable. But anyway, I was out for a month, and Pepper Rogers at Georgia Tech, his quarterback coach, left to be a coordinator somewhere.
Well, before you got to Georgia Tech, didn't you help Chris Collinsworth convert from an option quarterback to an all-SEC receiver here at UF?
Yeah. We preseason practice, he was, I think, all-state quarterback. But he was a tall, lanky guy, and he could run, and he could catch. And in fact, the year that I coached him here, Johnny Brantley was our quarterback. That was his best of the 3 years statistically for touchdown catches. I think he caught 10 touchdowns that year and so forth. So we did make him a wide receiver. I remember talking to him about it, and he was okay with it. I said, man, your talent is running like crazy and catching the ball. So he trained and became obviously one of the best receivers in the NFL when his career was over there. But he came here as a quarterback, but his best talent was as a wide receiver, obviously.
Going back to 65 and 66, it's your team, and you go on to have the most prolific career of any Florida Gator quarterback in history, probably any Florida Gator ever. All the UF passing records, some SEC ones. You even did some kicking. We had Jeff Chandler on, and he told the story about your Auburn kick, but we want to hear it straight from you. Can you tell us that story, Coach?
A lot of people don't realize that I kicked 2 field goals the first game of the season against Northwestern. I think a 41 and a 25. I was sort of the long distance kicker. Our extra point guy, Wayne Barfield, he was sort of a straight on, like everybody back then. And his distance was like 35 or something like that. But he was a very good extra point guy. So we didn't try a whole bunch of field goals after that first game. And then the Auburn game was the 7th game, I guess. And we got in a situation where it was 27 all, and it was a 40-yard field goal. And I was a long distance guy. So I went over sideline with Coach Grant and said, Coach, let me have a shot at it. And they had a square toe shoe back in those days. Mm-hmm. So we had a timeout. So I put on the square toe and fortunately went out there and kicked it and made it. And I think that field goal won the Heisman for me, probably without doubt. And so we were 7-0. And unfortunately, Georgia beat us the next game. So that was a tough loss for us. And when I got to be coach here at Florida, I tried my best to get even with Georgia. We won 11 out of 12. But I still don't think
I'd say you did pretty good.
I still don't think
the ledger went your way for sure there, Coach.
Yeah, I'd rather swap 2 or 3 of those maybe for that one back in 66. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that senior season, the bowl win over Georgia Tech. You guys go 9-2. You're consensus All-American. Of course, you just mentioned the Heisman. So were you the odds-on favorite to win after that kick? Do you remember? And also, who the other finalists were? Do you recall? I remember one particular name in that group, but do you remember who else you were up against?
Well, Bob Greasy was second. And
yeah,
what I think a lot of things sort of happened in my favor. An SEC player had not won the Heisman, I think, since Billy Cannon of about 1960 or 59-60, something like that. So we'd been 6 or 7 years without a Heisman. And Tom McEwen, a sports writer down in Tampa, very popular guy around the country. And I think they did a little bit of a campaign. We need to get a SEC guy, and our Florida guy, Steve Spurrier, and this, that, and the other. So anyway, I was fortunate enough to win it, really because of that kick. And I think because they voted before the season was over. We lost the last game of the season to Miami that year. Game that was close, but we did lose. So the voting and this, that, and the other sort of aligned to help me win the Heisman.
Coach, please tell us you voted for Rex and not Crouch.
Oh, of course. Yeah, every time I see Rex, I said, if we don't blow that Tennessee game. We lost to Tennessee 34-32. And last game, that's what cost Rex the Heisman.
All right, so San Fran picks you 3rd overall in 1967. You spent 10 seasons in the NFL. You spent time as a backup. You have some successes. You were in some bad situations and had some injuries. Did you have fun as a pro? What did you take from your NFL experience?
I was fortunate and to get 10 years in, about 8 of them as a backup quarterback. In fact, when Kyle Trask got drafted at Tampa Bay, I said, that's the best place to go because they had Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you can sit on that bench for about 5 or 6 years, you can last 9 or 10 years and be a backup quarterback. But if you go to a bad team and you have to play, you're not going to last real long, usually. So in hindsight, going out there and sitting behind John Brody for 6, 7 years proved beneficial. And then the year I was supposed to play, I got my shoulder separated. So I was out that year. But the one year I got to play a lot was 72. Brody had sprained his ankle really badly. And so I played about 10 games that year. And we did win the division. And Brody came back for the playoffs. and we went to the semifinals before the Super Bowl and lost a heartbreaker to Dallas that year.
You brought an early version of the fun and gun to Duke in 1987 and go on to set all their offensive and passing records. You win an ACC championship and Coach of the Year twice. Mm-hmm. Certainly a great omen for things to come at UF. But Coach K was there at the same time. Did you guys have any interaction, and was there anything you picked up from him?
Well, I was at Duke twice. I was there in 1980, 81, 82 as an assistant coach. And I give many, many thanks to Coach Red Wilson, who was the head coach there. I got at Georgia Tech, Bill Curry told me I was an applicant to be the quarterback coach, and I knew Duke was looking for an offensive coordinator. So I called the assistant coach, who told Coach Red Wilson, who called me, took me in for an interview, and gave me the job as offensive coordinator at Duke in 1980. And I said, "You got an offensive playbook I need to learn?" He said, "We don't have one. You can make it up. You can make it up. You can call it what you want to. And we want to throw the ball, and I love trick plays." That's what he told me.
Was that music to your ears, or was that terrifying?
So that was such an opportunity to put in a system that's easy to learn, and our systems were always pretty easy, and guys learned what to do, and it was flexible also. So my time at Duke with Coach Red Wilson got me the head job, Tampa Bay Bandits, and then when that league folded up, I got a chance to go back to Duke in 87, 88, 89, which gave me an opportunity to be the Gator coach when that job opened up after the 89 season.
So would you say the birth of the fun and gun was there at Duke, or
Yes.
was it when you were with the Bandits?
It was at Duke to start with. It was at Duke. We had 2 winning seasons, 88, 81, 82. Ben Bennett actually was the leading passer in college football for a while there. He finished in 83. So Ben Bennett threw for a whole bunch of yards here, there, and the other. And then I got the chance to go to the Bandits, John Reeves and those guys. We didn't win a championship. We were 14-4 one year. Second year, that was our best year. Everybody stayed healthy. And had winning seasons all the time, but we did not win one of those championships. And then when that league folded up, I had a chance to go back to Duke as the head coach. Timing just happened right then. So I owe so much to Duke University. And I tell those guys up there all the time, man, you gave me my opportunity to be a football coach.
So let's talk about when you get to Gainesville at the end of 89. As soon as you step back on campus, you announce big sweeping changes, and your team immediately feels the culture shift. You start bringing back the blue jerseys, the real grass, beating the rivals was a priority again. And we've had a bunch of players from that inaugural season on the show, and they all emphasize how your presence was felt immediately on the culture change. Why did you feel the need to make such drastic changes? And could you see the change from your perspective as coach as well?
Yeah, I tell you what, I inherited a heck of a ball team here in 1990. And I came in and sort of told the guys, we're good enough to win the SEC. And people say, no, you're not supposed to say that. And I say, yeah, I'm saying that because our expectations are going to be pretty high as they can be. And so, this, that, and the other, and beating Georgia. And we didn't change a lot of traditions around here, which we did because we had good players. And then Shane Matthews was here, quarterback, SEC Player of the Year his first 2 years. He was like 5th or 6th team when I got here. And they didn't have a passing game when I got here, so he really didn't have a chance to do much. But I'm telling you what, the receivers here, the running backs, the defense was 3rd in the nation and returned 8 starters when I got here. So when I spoke out a little bit, people said, man, you're not supposed to talk like that. I said, yeah, you are if you've got the players to do it. And we got the players. We got the players to do it. Don't worry. I'm not going to be a fool on that.
Well, you were quote, I'll put it in quotes, first in the SEC in 1990. Obviously not eligible for the title, but I love that ring, by the way.
Well, we were eligible till mid-season, and they came back. We were under investigation when I got there, and I went out to the infraction committee, and I remember the lady said, "These guys really have not done anything wrong. Why are we investigating these guys?" Well, what had happened like 4 or 5 years earlier, Charlie Pell and some of those guys paid players to come, and that was all proven. But none of our guys, none of our coaches had done anything wrong. So the committee said, "Well, let's just say they can't go to a bowl game." They got a new coach, Spurrier. Emmett Smith's left. They're not going to beat anybody hardly. They go about 4-7. So let's just say they can't go to a bowl game. So we say we gave them a penalty. And that's the only reason they did. And I didn't even know that until they gave us that penalty. And somebody said, "Well, you're not eligible for the championship." I said, "Why?" They said, "We can't go to a bowl game." And the SEC said the Sugar Bowl gets the champion. So if you can't go to a bowl game, you can't be the champion. I said, "Well, we can be the champion. We don't have to go to that damn bowl game." So I told the guys, if we win it, I can assure you, I will always call you guys SEC champs of 1990. And I always have. And if they don't want to give us credit for that one, they don't have to give us credit for the other 6 either, as far as I'm concerned. Because that team won it. They won it just as clearly as the other 6 won it.
Definitely.
No question.
Like you said, you won 5 of the next 6 SEC championships, 6 total. Let's talk about 96 Sugar Bowl, 52-20. I mean, just saying that score brings a rush over any diehard Gator fan. The revenge, the culmination of a national championship, the first in UF history. How often do you sit back and reminisce about that game?
No, very seldom. Very seldom. I reminisce about those that we could have, should have won and didn't. Our 2001 team with Rex Grossman. Statistically was about like that 96 team. We beat everybody soundly, and we had 2 close games and lost both of them. But the heartbreaker was the 34-32 to Tennessee. Last game of the season. And, it cost us SEC. Actually, LSU beat Tennessee in the championship game, and we beat LSU 44-15 that year.
Sure did.
So at LSU. And then Saban sort of regrouped his guys, and they go and beat Tennessee for the SEC. So anyway, I reminisce more about those we could have, should have, would have. That didn't work out. But then I have to go back and say we won some that could have gone the other way also.
Fair enough.
We were all there that final year. That was my final year when I graduated. Rex, friends of the show like Jabbar, Lito, and a whole bunch of other Gator greats. And it's actually my personal favorite Gator team. And of course, me, like many other Gators, remember exactly where I was when I heard the news that you were leaving for the NFL. I mean, obviously, you accomplished just about everything there was to do in Gainesville, and nobody can begrudge you for going to pursue your goals in the NFL. But how close were you to sticking around and staying in Gainesville, for another decade or two?
Well, back then, the NFL, when you can almost triple your salary, and back then, when you're getting near 60, I remember one time I said, "I don't think I'll be coaching after age 60. I mean, I became a head coach at 45, and you think, well, if you can be a head coach 15 years, that's pretty good. And then all of a sudden, I got to 60, and I felt just as good as I did when I was 45. So I went to 70, and then I had a team that just I made some mistakes on the staff, and I had a bunch of guys didn't listen to me very well, and we weren't very good. So that's when I knew it was time to get out of coaching. So that's how it happened for me. But coaches nowadays, they realize they can coach into their 70s if you're winning and you're in good physical health and so forth.
In Washington, you did get a lot of Gator greats on that team. Got kind of quote unquote the band back together. Shane, Danny, Chris, Quez, all a bunch of guys.
We did, yeah. They were available, and they were just as good as the players we had there.
Sure.
I don't think our owner liked all that too much, but anyway, that was when you go somewhere because it's more money, then it's usually the wrong place to go. So anyway, that's sort of what happened up there. But they're winning now,
They sure are.
Of course, they played my team, Tampa Bay.
They had to change the owner first, but now they are.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, they got it going. And that Jalen Daniels, he is a class guy and a good player. And, of course, Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Bucks have had a good year. That was a heartbreaker for Tampa Bay last week.
All right. Well, you returned to the SEC in 2005 as coach of the Gamecocks. You'd leave there in 2015 as the winningest coach, just like you did at UF. I got to ask, I know it's your job, but at the time, how did it feel to come back to the swamp as a foe? I mean, the house that you built.
It really wasn't that difficult because I've been gone for, let's see, 4 years, I guess. They played us up there in 05. So the last game I coached was 01. So I think they may have had one or two guys that were like redshirt freshmen when I was at Florida, but not many of their players had I coached. So and now South Carolina was my team, and Urban Meyer, that was his team down there. So it really, after 4 years out, it wasn't that big a deal right there. When you start coaching a team, you're with them all year. They're your guys, and we're trying to get our guys to beat their guys, and it was pretty much just that.
All right, Coach, $1 million question. If you needed one big touchdown pass on the last play of the game to win it all, and you could pick from any of the quarterbacks that played for you, who are you sending out there?
Well, probably Danny Warfel because he did it a lot. Sometimes I see these guys win a whole bunch of close ones, and I say, how you guys win so many 3-point games like that? But, I would say Danny, but Rex Grossman was, I say, our most natural, beautiful passer. But then, of course, Shane Matthews. Heck, Shane was SEC Player of the Year his first 2 years. Rex was very good. And Doug Johnson had some great games. Jesse Palmer. Jesse had the last minute drive to beat Tennessee in 2000, which helped lead us to win SEC that year. So Jesse had some really good games also. Y'all still there?
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, God, did we just lose all his audio? He's gone.
All right, well, that's life sometimes, right? Sid, are you there? Did we lose Sid too?
You did not lose me. I guess this means I don't have to retire because we didn't finish the episode, so I'm allowed to come back next episode.
Sid's over there crying in his soup.
I am. I'm like devastated. Like, come back, Coach. Come back.
Oh, man. All right, so there was obviously issues with Coach's connection. I don't know how it's going to sound when we edit, but let's go ahead and let's wrap up the show ourselves. And we end the show in a bit, and Coach isn't here, but I don't know if it'd be that difficult to pick. We were going to do a Mount Rushmore of the best Florida Gator football teams coached by Coach Spurrier. So if we had to put 4 on a Mount Rushmore, guys, who would we put there? Do we start with the 90 team?
I think you actually have to start with the first championship team because that's the pinnacle. So that's.
I mean, are we going in order?
Well, are we going in order like chronological,
Yeah.
or are we going in
Chronological,
order of impact of the team?
Mount Rushmore is just 4. There's not really an order to them, right? But I mean, if you're saying,
okay,
no, I understand what you're saying.
Well, I think we can agree though the first team was huge because that was one that was the culture change and set it in motion, and is the unofficial champion because of the whole hootenanny, as Coach told us the cool story about. So that's good, and championships that's 2. So Andy, what do you got? Which one you throwing for us?
I mean, I'm going to go with his last year there.
That's my favorite.
With Rex.
Yeah, that's my favorite.
Rex.
So is it lame to go with 95, which was a team that played for the national championship? Now, we got spanked, but they played for the national championship, and a lot of the guys on that team credited that game for making them able to win it in 96? Or do we think maybe one of the earlier, maybe 91, the first official Spurrier SEC title team? What do we think?
I say we go 95. They still made it to the national championship. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, they were a great team. They just went up against one of the best ever.
Well, I mean,
yeah,
they played for a national championship 2 years in a row, so they definitely did something right there.
The Mount Rushmore of Steve Spurrier, head ball coach, Coach Spurrier's Florida Gator football teams. Mount Rushmore, 1990, the first in the SEC, his inaugural team. 95, their first national championship game. 96, winning their first national championship. And 2001, what could have been, what should have been, maybe a championship, maybe a Heisman, just loaded with talent, that 2001 team. That's a hell of a Mount Rushmore.
It is.
All right. 2 bits.
2 bits time. Let's wrap it up. I'm going to go first because in doing research for the interview, which we didn't get to ask Coach a lot of the questions we wanted to ask, but there were a lot of correlations I would see in things that have happened to him when he was young or things that were said to how he approached coaching, probably playing too when he was younger, but definitely coaching when he was older. If they're keeping score, we're going to play to win. I mean, we saw that. we saw that at UF.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. And the quarterback swapping, he was swapped in, his first year playing for a little while, and then he was swapped in and out in San Fran for a little while. So he said that wasn't the reason, but, there's still a correlation there that he experienced it, right? So I just found those correlations interesting.
Okay, I like that.
Awesome. I'll go next. Mine's pretty easy one. It was kind of cool to hear him talk. I like the discussion about recruiting. That was something I wanted to hear about, and he definitely remembered the Riedel Anthony story. That one came right to his mind. He got a little chuckle out of that one. But I liked when he said that he recruited Riedel and Freddie T.
Same weekend.
Same weekend.
Yep.
That's a
productive
huge weekend in Gator history, right? That's a huge weekend for us.
Yeah.
So,
hey, what'd you do this weekend, Coach?
Absolutely.
Well, now that you mention it, I like that. That's a good one, Andy. All right. Wow. I don't want to follow that. That was a good one, Andy. All right, I got one. I loved his perspective on the Kyle Trask situation, and from a guy who had a 10-year career in the NFL, knows a little something about quarterbacking, but I liked his perspective. Hey, he's played behind Tom Brady a few years. You make it 5 or 6 years, you can make it 10. You look at some of these guys who get drafted high, they get put in, and they get exposed, and they're out of the league, don't even get a second contract. Zach Wilson, so like these things, it's amazing how much a situation really calls for that. And ball coach identified that. Kyle Trask, great situation. We might not see him starting in any playoff games, but that guy's going to make a 10-year NFL career for himself because he landed in a good situation, and coach identified that. And it's kind of something you really don't think about. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
Yep, awesome.
Was he wearing a South Carolina shirt?
There were the colors. I didn't see a
No,
cock
it
logo.
wasn't.
I did not see a cock logo, but the colors were close. They were.
Yep.
Oh, gentlemen. Our biggest show yet, the head ball coach. He was on the All for the Gators podcast. 4 is the number 4. Sometimes life hands you lemons, and you got to make lemonade. So
Hey, listen, we'll take whatever we could get with him, right?
I think,
Absolutely.
though, because we didn't officially end the show, this means I no longer have to retire because the episode hasn't ended with Coach Spurrier. So until we have Coach Spurrier back to properly end the show, I think I'll come back next week if you guys will still have me, if that's okay.
Yeah, I guess so.
All right.
Yeah, why not?
Why not?
Great. Yes, thank you.
all right, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure.
Go Gators.
Go Gators!
Go Gators.